welcome to the Double Blind Magic Hour, where we cover what's going on in the world of psychedelics, from insider baseball drama within the rapidly unfolding psychedelic movement to the latest news on research, politics, and beyond. I'm Shelby Hartman, Double Blind's co-founder and editor-in-chief, and today we're joined by two people who really need no introduction, the visionary artists Alex and Allison Gray. If you don't know their work, I don't know why, but I suggest you Google them right now and look at it. They're absolute pioneers in the world of psychedelic art, and they also have a nonprofit and church that you should know about called the Chapel of Sacred Mirrors, which is devoted to contemplation and worship for community honoring the practice of art as a spiritual path. They've been doing events and gatherings there for decades, as well as displaying the works of art by themselves and other visionary artists, and we're just honored to have them here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Shelby. Thank you for
So
inviting
good to be
us.
here. We're so honored.
We're stoked to have Fungi as the official sponsor of the Double Blind Magic Hour. Fungi makes psychedelic alternative chocolates and fruit chews activated with Kanna. And if you haven't heard of or explored Kanna yet, I highly recommend it. It's a beautiful plant from South Africa that is growing in popularity. It is completely legal, and it's a very heart-opening experience. Some people use it as an alternative to alcohol. People also use it in meditation. There's a lot of uses for Kanna. One of the amazing things about Fungi is that they not only include Kanna, but they also include other ingredients that are intended for sort of gentle stimulation. They're intended for having a good time. They can also be used as aphrodisiacs. They include a combination of Kanna and also functional mushrooms in their products. And from my personal experience, I really enjoyed taking these. I had a friend over the other day. We took some Fungi chocolates. We did some yoga in my backyard. And it was just like that gentle opening and relaxation that we were wanting as we wrapped our days. So whether you're going to a festival, whether you are going on a mushroom trip, or you're just looking to have a good time with yourself at home in your backyard, I recommend checking out Fungi. Podcast listeners can get 25% off their first order. Just use code DoubleBlindPod at Fungi, FUNGUY.com. This episode is brought to you by our sponsor, Psyched Wellness. Psyched Wellness is on a mission to bring you the healing, restorative magic of Amanita muscaria mushrooms with their product, Calm. Calm is a unique, legal Amanita muscaria extract available for sale in the United States. It's been formulated by wellness professionals to help you rest, relax, and keep stress at bay, all without the high. You can get some Calm in your life now and save 10% with the code DOUBLEBLIND at psyched-wellness.com. That's PSYCHED-wellness.com. So what are you waiting for? Drift into dreamland with Calm. Your mind and body will thank you.
Great introduction, by the way. Thank you for that. That was really lovely.
You're welcome. And I really am humbled by the fact that you both have supported Double Blind. My dad and I came and visited you, and you did a workshop with us, and we've interviewed you for the magazine. And, you know, I just have to say, at the risk of overly gushing, that we've often said at Double Blind that we feel like we're standing on the shoulders of giants. And this is many people who have been at the forefront of advocating for reform around psychedelics for much of their lives. And of course, we also want to give reverence to all of the indigenous stewards of these medicines. But we really see you in some ways as elders of the psychedelic renaissance at this point. And so we just appreciate you taking the time to support us newbies.
Well, I have to thank you and say that to us, you are on the frothy edge of like the media of this movement. You know what I mean? What you're doing is very important, and it's very new, and it's very well done. And we are honored to be associated with you. Honestly, you people are doing the work, to make this movement have a future.
Double Blind magazine is in the Psychedelic Reliquary. I
do
don't
have
know
Double
whether
Blind
you,
in the Psychedelic Reliquary.
whether
I
people.
don't even know that word. What does reliquary mean?
Well,
There you go.
reliquary is a place where you house relics, and relics. There's three types. Of course, like the number one type would be genetic material, of a saint or something like that. That's considered like a relic. So then a second class relic is something that they wore. So something that, like a ring or like glasses. So we have a pair of Albert Hoffman's glasses the day he made the medicine, April 6th,
You do?
April 16th, and then
We
when
have his glasses, yeah.
his family,
That's amazing.
his family, along with the painting, which has become a third class relic because he signed it. So a third class relic is something like a signature or something like that. So those three types of relics we tried to collect for some of the psychedelic elders, like Dr. Hoffman. We have a hair from Herr Hoffman, and
wow.
and then
Glasses.
and numerous notes and writings. And the family also donated a beautiful black hat that he liked to wear, and it has a very special, amazing odor, I have to say. That
You can never wash the hat.
Without telling you every single piece that is in the show, which Alex loves to do, because it's our collection, but it's been his prize, and he really takes a pride in having magazines from the history of psychedelics up to the contemporary
Double Blind.
Frothy Edge.
That's right.
And then there's
gosh.
also an indigenous section with incredible mushroom stones, and there's a kind of they're cannabis jars from the loaned to us from the Cannabis Museum in Ohio, and of course, Baba Ramdas is portrayed also in the group of psychedelic heroes, and
We have a lock
Terrence's,
of hair that he sent us. That's
some relics from Terrence.
tied with a thread of Neem Karoli Baba from his
Wow.
blanket, So
Wow.
he was very sweet.
So we invite people, of course, to come to Entheon. We're jumping ahead a little bit, but that's a room in Entheon is the Psychedelic Reliquary, and believe me, it's not big enough. It's so packed, and so many people have so many relics of the psychedelic era. They're very interested in preserving this history. That's how important it is to so many people. So we've been very lucky.
This almost seems like a silly question because you have done so many different things and you've played so many different roles within the psychedelic movement. But for folks who maybe are just meeting you for the first time, or for probably more folks who have seen your work, know your art, but don't know you, how would you sort of introduce yourselves, to the
like
community?
To go
I mean,
first?
how do you see yourselves within this, this emerging ecosystem?
Well, I mean, you want me to go first? You go first. Okay. I see us as leaders, of something for which we've long been a stand, which is cognitive liberty. People should think the way they want to think, and they should be able to meet together in groups of others who have similar thinking. They're all different. Everyone's different. Everybody's unique, but there's a certain philosophical core that exists in some people. And this is why churches exist. There's lots of anger about churches, and there's absolute reason for that. There's absolute reason for that. Everybody understands that. But there's also a need for it. If there weren't a need for it, there wouldn't be so many. And they are not all dying. They're just changing. They're going through transformation. And that's where we come in. We consider ourselves an interspiritual art church. a radically welcoming interspiritual art church, if you want to really know. And so basically all traditions, all paths are welcome, all wisdom is, like encouraged. And so we basically have started the full moon ceremonies in January of 2003, and we have never missed one. We have our 266th in a consecutive and unbroken chain of full moon ceremonies coming up this Saturday. It's the
420 church.
It's the pink moon is the April moon. But anyway, the theme will be liberation, because April is all about liberation. But anyway, that's the framework. And then the following day is Art Church, where we practice art as a spiritual path. We come together, we create a wonderful thematic playlist, and then we all go into silence and listen to the music and make art for 45 minutes. Can you imagine being quiet and not talking for 45 minutes? A lot of people.
Sounds like heaven.
A lot of people. It's my favorite hour of the entire month, honestly. Nobody can touch me. I can't be distracted. I'm not allowed to go to the phone, and it's a beautiful exercise. And I think a lot of people get a lot out of it. So we've been doing it for a long time following the full moon.
Yeah. I mean, we've noticed there's really a magnified kind of creative energy field, that when people are all visioning together and working, creating together.
So what I hear you saying is that, among many other things, you're advocates for cognitive liberty. And that is a really interesting term and a really interesting conversation that I look into getting into more with the both of you, because obviously, well, at the risk of stating the obvious, we're in this moment of we're going to medicalize psychedelics to make them legitimate, right? We're going to show that synthesized psilocybin has promise for depression. MDMA has promise for PTSD. When we know that even if you go into a psychedelic experience with the intention of healing a particular mental health condition, oftentimes a lot of other things happen during the experience too. And how do we broaden the conversation to encompass the entirety of the psychedelic experience, which is what you talk about at your church, what you show in your art, that it's not so simple. These things cannot be reduced.
I think that, historians have pretty much found that our civilizations have been based in the psychedelic experience, East and West, and throughout the Americas as well. It seems that the most ancient shamans, who were sort of the predecessors of the religions of today, were many of them, adepts with plant sacraments and things throughout the world. And so now we see that, it's part of the most ancient religious tradition humanity has had, these kind of the secrets of the ages, weren't lost in the books of philosophers, but they were woven into the relationship with, like, mushrooms, safely outside of the, kind of the ownership of any particular group. And so that way, many could reach truth in their own way, and so I see in visionary art sort of evidence throughout the, like, cave art that Terence introduced to the world, the little running mushroom-headed figures carrying mushrooms, seeming to frolic over a very crystalline kind of landscape that they may be sporing and with a kind of understanding. And they even have antenna that seem to have some sense of thoughts going to these little mushrooms. And so symbolically, it's very dense, kind of early psychedelic art, that's 8 to 10,000 years old. And so I think that what we're discovering together, all the visionary artists, is that they're part of a long-standing tradition that's been connected with the sacred. And we're witnesses to it. This is a place where we can store and share our mystical experiences, and that helps to other people to kind of reinforce and validate their own experiences if they happen to resonate with the work.
Yeah, I wanted to swing back also to your mention of medicine and how the substance is coming into the culture through healing, through medicine. And this, I believe, is good and is happening because, in order to sort of plead your case, this stuff really belongs in the culture. You need to show benefit to, and healing is benefit. So people who have relief from suicidal ideation, or have relief from addiction, or have relief from neurosis, or relief from depression, they show actual evidence. You see what I mean? They got to write it down in numbers. Like, this is the amount of people. They have to do a study to make it like, so, your grandma needs this, grandma needs this. She's got anxiety around terminal illness. It's called old age, So really, as Bob Jesse has said for decades, it's really for the betterment of well people. But we're all getting well. You know what I mean? The wellest ones among us, I think, are still working on themselves and trying to be more well. So I know that's what happened with Alex and I. We were not under the care of any psychiatrist, and we had never been institutionalized, but we did have addiction, suicidal ideation, depression, anger management, all that stuff is just sweeping through us, or withdrawal, or all kinds of stuff. And yet we were doing pretty well. You know what I mean? We were functioning, but these treatments were really helpful, like you were saying, in more areas than just those, but also to have the life you love, vision what you really want in life and go for it, that kind of thing.
I remember speaking to you, Alex, oh gosh, 6 years ago, something like that. I interviewed you for a story I was doing for Quartz at the time on a study that was giving psilocybin to rabbis, imams, priests, and other religious leaders who had never tripped before. And at the time, I remember you telling me that, I hope you don't mind me saying this, we can cut it out later if you do, but I remember you telling me that sort of in the early days of what we're calling the psychedelic renaissance, with these conferences and things, that you were invited to come speak, and you often were bringing up the concept of mysticism, and that not everybody really wanted you to be talking about mysticism because people are afraid of a repeat of history, so to speak, where there's all this flourishing research in the 50s and the 60s, and then it was shut down in the 70s. And, if we talk about mysticism, we talk about cognitive liberty, we talk about art, we talk about dance, we talk about community, like maybe that's going to be too far. Maybe the culture isn't ready for that. What do you say now, 6 years later? Are we ready to talk about mysticism? Are we ready to talk about the full potential of these experiences? Or should we still be really, really careful about how we're framing what these are supposed to be doing for people?
I think that anytime you start to talk about meaning and healing. And all of the Johns Hopkins kind of work seems to regard the mystical experience as having great significance to the healing process. So we could say that opening up to a sacred world, healing is part of the entourage effect of that opening. And most people in the field understand that it's a reductionist lens to put a simple medication on it because it transcends the boundaries of other medicaments that we know of. This is kind of a soul medicine. And we don't have a comfortable context to talk about that because we have psychiatry, and some of it would say talking about the soul's okay, but it's more in the sort of the realm of spirituality that we start to feel that that's the real opening for the psychedelic explorer, is when they see the shores of the infinite and understand that all of that is their own inner terrain as well. It's equally infinite to the outer infinitude. And that's just a great anchoring understanding, that's hard to communicate, with words, but once one's been there, then it's why communities meet, they feel the need to meet other people who've had that experience, or something like that experience.
That's so poetic, this idea of touching the shores of the infinite. And I think I want to get a little vulnerable in this moment because I do see you both as teachers and say that, Ram Dass famously said that he went to India to, I mean, you know this, but for listeners who don't know, famously said he went to India because he was doing lots and lots and lots of acid. And at a certain point, he realized he was always going to come back down again. And you speak so poetically about the possibility of touching the shores of the infinite and what that opens up for a person and their consciousness and their sense of possibility. But we also see a lot in our culture that people are seeking, once they've touched the shores of the infinite, they just want to keep going back there. They just want to see it again and again and again and again. And then, one of the sort of elephants in the room with the psychedelic research is we don't have long-term studies looking at what happens to people many decades after they've had a transformative psychedelic experience, and if the benefits persist long into their lives. So, sure, we touch the shores of the infinite, but then where do we go from there if we want to see real sustainable change within ourselves and within our culture? Are we romanticizing the idea that someone can just touch the shores of the infinite a few times and then, their outlook is going to change, they're going to become a more conscientious global citizen?
I think that the evidence of transformation in our culture through the use of psychedelics is very evident to us people that are over 70, let's say, and still advocates. And there are many of us, really. I mean, if you go to the Psychedelic Science Conference with 12,000 people, you see people of all ages. You do see children, actually, but you see people of all the mature ages. And so I think it's the evidence is there because, like I was saying, the things that we've been through, we find that this substance has helped us through those things that we go through in our life. And so, yeah, what we do.
Well, I just wanted to say I understand the desire once one has had contact with something that's so beyond. It may in some ways be shattering, though, to your reality. So um, to try to constantly go there, even the substances themselves have a kind of a tolerance, that develops as if to say, no, you've had enough for now, and most of the wisdom keepers, I think, would have us integrate what we learned from that experience. And I always think that there's um, spirits that are watching you. And if you're an artist or a creative person, that there may be creative angels, kind of circling around, and they're seeding fertile ground, with visions. And so if you develop that relationship in a way, or open yourself up to it, that's a kind of your art can potentially become a spiritual messenger system. You know?
Is that how you both see your art? A spiritual messenger system?
I don't know that I see my art that way, but I think I think Alex's work does speak to people in that way, very literally. You know what I mean, narratively. I refer to the images that I have inside my eyes, inside my head, and also the processes that I have inside my head about making art. That it's a making process. It's something that comes from a thought and goes through symbols and becomes a thing. And so I have a process that I have noticed through the years, and it's more of a way of communicating, I think, in a sense. Of course, I love the responses from people too. I love to get feedback and to hear what what their experience is of my work. But I think more the act of making it is really an outward sort of communication, which has to do with chaos, order, and secret writing, and their essentialized, my essentialized worldview that psychedelics handed me, basically, that those were the most minimal that you had. You had these basic categories, chaos being the material world where everything is in inevitable entropy. It's just everything's falling apart, and beautifully too. Beautiful colors and in an array, and always royally and always in motion. And then there's order, which is the fountains and drains of energy that we see, in a vast vista, when we're at our highest state of consciousness, the psychedelic state of meditation, and then there's the secret writing, which is the language of creative expression, the thoughts that become things. Like my words, like Terence would say, my mouth noises, are all symbols of that you recognize, because I'm not speaking Chinese. You see through those windows of symbols, and you read them, and your mind perceives them. And this is a way. This is the essential act of an artist, is to be a symbol maker. So that's where psychedelics took me. It took me to essentializing and like seeing what is like behind the veil. Don't we all say that? It's what's behind the veil, and it seemed like make art about the most important thing, and that seemed like what it was telling me. So I've done that for many, many years. And you were talking about Ram Dass, though, who decided to go meditate after he really changed my trip. I'd been tripping along for 3 years, doing all kinds of things like people do, and when they're first few years of college. And then I read the Ram Dass book, and I got that I should go in a dark room by myself and trip. And that's when I saw secret writing. So, it was like God came to me in that moment. I had not been God knowing before that. I had been agnostic, let's say. But anyway, but then immediately, I read the book, and it was said that, he went to, India to study, and that I should it said to me that I should start finding a place to meditate. And I did. I went to Yogi Bhajan, and he initiated me himself. So, he brought Kundalini Yoga to America. So anyway, it was an incredible group of people, 20 or 30 years older than me, all of them. And I started meditating when I was 19. So Alex and I do, and I think it's a wonderful, it is an essential thing to do. I mean, if you're not doing it, it's just you're not doing it yet. That's all. It's really something that you get to, and it's 5 minutes. Give yourself 5 minutes. You'll learn so much if you do it every day. So
yeah, I think that along with a creative practice, that a meditation practice is sort of like the tried and true path to integrating some of these amazing experiences that people have, and finding the sort of root of awareness, that you get to experience in so many ways. A friend called me an interdimensional smuggler.
Remembered that
because you're bringing visions from the other side into this realm.
Mm-hmm.
You're sharing them with all of us muggles. I'm looking forward to talking with you both more about your creative practices as well as the work that you're doing at Cosm. But first, we're going to take a quick break. Did you know that there is one phase of sleep that almost everyone fails to get enough of? And this one phase of sleep is responsible for most of your body's daily rejuvenation, repair, controlling hunger and weight loss hormones, boosting energy, and so much more. I'm talking about deep sleep. And if you don't get enough, you'll probably struggle with cravings, slow metabolism, premature aging, or even worse conditions. Why don't most people get enough of this one most important phase of sleep? A big reason is magnesium deficiency, because over 80% of the population is deficient in magnesium. And magnesium increases GABA, which encourages relaxation on a cellular level, which is critical for sleep. Magnesium also plays a key role in regulating your body's stress response system. Those with magnesium deficiency usually have higher stress levels, which negatively impacts sleep as well. Now, before you go out and buy a magnesium supplement, it's important to understand that most products out there only have 1 to 2 forms of magnesium, when the reality is your body needs all 7 forms of this essential sleep mineral. That's what makes Magnesium Breakthrough by Bioptimizers unique. Magnesium Breakthrough contains all 7 forms of magnesium designed to help calm your mind and help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up refreshed. For an exclusive offer, go to bioptimizers.com/doubleblind and use promo code DOUBLEBLIND during checkout to save 10%. So for those of you who don't know, Double Blind began as a print magazine, and it's still at the heart of what we do. I spent my whole career as a journalist before starting Double Blind, reporting on psychedelics, cannabis, and drug policy more broadly for Rolling Stone, Vice, LA Weekly, Quartz. I did just about everything in journalism. I worked at CBS News covering breaking news, a major newspaper, small media startups, and if you haven't heard, journalism is in crisis. But we started Double Blind anyway because we believe in the value of good journalism to educate and hold stakeholders accountable. We saw what happened in cannabis. Pioneers who put their lives on the line to get patients access to the medicine they needed, getting left behind because they didn't have the capital to compete in the newly regulated market. We've seen what's happened in mental health care and healthcare more broadly, whereby millions of people are suffering, don't trust their doctors, can't afford proper care, and just don't know what to do to get well. In our print magazine, we feature essays, investigations, photojournalism, and much more by world-class journalists who are going everywhere from the ayahuasca tourism industry in Peru to laboratories at leading universities. We're supporting people like you on their journey with psychedelics, and we're covering this movement as it unfolds. This is all made possible by our members who, in exchange for their support, get direct access to psychedelic experts to help them on their journeys of healing and growth, workshops, and a subscription to our beautiful print magazine. Subscribe today at doubleblindmag.com/membership. So I'd like to go a little bit more deeply into both of your creative practices. Allison, I thought it was really interesting the way you were talking about this concept of sort of bringing forth the thoughts into reality, or I can't remember exactly how you framed it, but it exists within you and then you're making it real without you. And I've been sitting with ayahuasca for about 7 years. And I have spoken to people who have been doing it a lot longer than I have. And one of the things that I've heard said to me again and again is the more you sit with it, the more intricate your visions get. And the more you remember what you see and are able to bring those things back with you. So I'm curious, you've both been artists for a long time. You've both been doing psychedelics for a long time. How has this process of bringing what's within you outside of you evolved over time? How have you learned to sort of take note of what's unfolding, to remember those visions? Is there a practice for when you're in that space to sort of take photographs within you of those visions to bring them forth? Like, how does that work?
Exactly. Good question. It's a continually evolving kind of thing, because the first LSD experience that I had in your apartment, back in 1975, I made my first psychedelic art out of, because that was my first psychedelic experience. And part of the hallmark of most psychedelic experiences is they're kind of unforgettable in their own way. They create a gravity of consciousness, just in a moment, and seemingly so many created vistas and beings and things like that, that it seems impossible that it's not just another realm like our physical existence. But what is the dream world? It opens up all of those questions, and so let's see.
Well, first of all, you use a journal. That's one of the things you do. Yeah, and we always do if we're tripping. And in any, we write stuff down when we're just smoking weed too. But I mean, it's good to have a journal, a special journal for when you're tripping, don't you think?
I have sketchbooks that have vomit on them from the purging that didn't quite hit the bucket or something, and they have notes that are so fascinating because they're written sometimes in the dark and over the same statements.
I have journals like that as well.
Don't you? Yeah. I wonder how many ayahuasca journals are like that. It's really funny. And then occasionally there's this moment of clarity, and I make a little drawing or something like the pattern was something like this, and and I could note the colors in the borders, look at the borders of things. I think also remember the feelings you're having. Really try to sense, along with the vision that you may be witnessing, the feelings that you're having at that time. And if it seems like, wow, I may return there, boy, that's one to note down or something like that, and make notes about color, make notes about anything, but also the feeling, if you can at all put anything into words, because it's why you're making art, is essentially you can't put it into words. But when it starts to resemble that thing again, I've found that the feeling starts to come back, and you start to, oh yeah, it was like this. And when you get more of that in it, then you've maybe successfully or more successfully offloaded the vision into a form that maybe other people could receive the same kind of blast, because I think art is like a battery of consciousness, and you're really weaving the consciousness that inspired the work into a manifest format, for other people to alter their consciousness with. It's a simple way to alter consciousness. Look at art.
Yeah. I thought I would just briefly give a perspective from a person who makes abstract visual art for all the people out there that may want to create their visions abstractly and are not as narrative maybe in their style. There's many wonderful visionary artists that are narrative in their style, and they're making incredible documents of visions of in a more in their own way, and everyone's unique. But what I was going to say is that I think that psychedelics changed my mind and affected my memory of it in the sense that it's already embedded in there. And so when the river of ideas flows by, which it constantly does, it's like new ideas are always coming. The ones that you pluck out are the ones that look most like your reservoir of imagery that's in there. Like, how can I make this, on it? Well, that's kind of like a judgment. It's like, is this, like looking like that image? That's kind of where the choices come in, like of what you're going to do. And this piece behind us, by the way, is called Rainbow Eye Ripple. And it's a collaboration.
I can't see why.
Yeah, it's a collaboration of Alex and I. We did it as we started it as a live painting in several locations, but it not only includes the eyes, which are so associated with Alex's work, but it also includes the square diamond recession configuration mandala that I always work in when I call it order, and then of course there's the spectral rainbow of ribbons that are roiling, which I think is both Alex's and mine. The roiling, in mine being more like an explosion, or and Alex's is always dimensionalized so beautifully.
Right. In yours, the geometry is maybe a little more understandable, but it's definitely coherent in this, the same kind of web and square root kind of recession. But that is one of the things that art can do is point to the infinite, and it can do it symbolically. And in an image like this, you have the eye, and that's obviously a symbol of awareness. And so you multiply it, and you have expanded awareness, just symbolically. The unconscious is receiving these kinds of messages when it sees something like this. And then the light. So the light, another association with consciousness, something that's luminous and, brilliant in its own way, and has its own intensity, its full chroma. And so
some of the words, oh, sorry.
No, I'm done.
Oh, well, I was just going to say some of the words that I hear you using are remembering, connecting, reconnecting, feeling, remembering the feeling. This might sound silly, especially because I actually was writing about art and studied art before I was writing about psychedelics. But for some reason, Alex in particular, when I look at your work, because Allison, I know your work is more abstract, I've always thought it was representative of exactly what you were seeing. I've never thought about the feeling component of it, what we're feeling on a psychedelic experience. But we do know that in this integration process, this period after the psychedelic experience, remembering the feeling is as important as remembering the thoughts, as bringing these sort of revelations of what is alive for you and your body and your life forward in a way that's meaningful, that's going to create sustained change. And one of my favorite things, I'm sure you've both seen this, the bumper sticker, it says earth, and then art is in different colors than the E and the H. So what happens when you take the art out of earth? This is kind of the sense I get of how some people regard art within the psychedelic industry movement, right? It's like, first, we're going to legalize these as medicines. We need to make them available in a clinical setting. Art is nice. It's ancillary. But actually, what I hear you both saying is art can be an integral part, whether you're making it or looking at it, of making sure that we remember what the heck even happened when we were in that other dimension talking to an alien. I mean, can you talk a little bit about this? Why is psychedelics without art?
I would just want to retort that I don't feel that I'm not painting what I see. I am painting what I see. I'm painting exactly what I see. And we all would be, because it occurs in our mind, which is changed from the psychedelics. And it has a memory, like the remembering. In fact, the book Be Here Now is actually called Remember, Be Here Now. And you hear yourself saying, remember to remember. When you're in that experience, it's like you want to bring it back. So you do, you bring it back in your memory. And I see it. I see it without the people having the experience or the angels that you imagine in the experience. I actually do see abstract patterning in my, who doesn't? In their psychedelic experience, we all see abstract patterning. It's even if I get extra stoned, I see it on the sidewalk in front of me. You know what I mean? Everything seems patterned. So it isn't like that is not literal. It's literal. It's just abstract. It's considered abstract because it doesn't have people in it. The people are having the experience. I'm doing the experience without the having. It's what's inside. That I'm painting.
I think that every artist provides a lens into that dimension, and some are looking in one direction and dimension, and it appears one way. Allison and I say our common subject is transcendental light. So it's something that hopefully comes through. Now, you had a question that I was about ready to answer.
What was your question again?
Please, could you rephrase?
I said, why is art integral to the psychedelic experience, to the unfolding of psychedelics?
Well, of course, I see evidence there in the walls of Tassili, the earliest kind of cave art that we know, that it shows up. Art is a natural kind of outcome of this intense visual experience, symbolic experience. How do you get that out? It's like that's a lot of people want to write about it. They want to talk about it. They want to meet other people who might have had experience. They want to read about it, and then one of the other ways is to obviously share some of this imagery. It's so dense and rich. I started to think of it as a kind of art theology in itself. That the divine imagination is unveiling itself to us in the mystical visionary experience. And this is a kind of a miracle in a way. And then we get to, in some way, share that. And I think the art is like a little ember left from a burning house. That's all you're going to get, is just a little, maybe it's a still smoldering something, of that amazing moment. But it could be like a fractal moment. It could be a summary statement. And I think that that's what the integration process has kind of brought us to. I see, like our earliest universal mind lattice kind of experience, which we made little notes of and things like that back in 1976. That's what kind of the Chapel of Sacred Mirrors houses that mystical experience. And visionary art in general houses or somehow embodies the treasury of gifts that we were given. We don't quite have the ability to manifest directly visually yet. There may be a way, in the
Elon Musk is coming.
I'm sure
he's coming for us.
Exactly. The embedded kind of embedded kind of technology that can somehow model or read as we're experiencing our own imagination. Is there a way to voyeuristically peer in, create a telescope into the imagination that would allow people to simultaneously witness it as we experience it? I wouldn't put it past engineers to develop such technology, and I think it would be amazing to witness.
The first time that I drank ayahuasca, well, we won't get all into that, but I'll say the next morning I woke up and I said to someone, it was the craziest thing. I saw snakes. And you know where this is going, right? The person said, "Oh, yeah, that's Mother Ayahuasca. She presents herself to people as a snake." And, the more I started looking at visionary art, and I've talked to you both about Pablo Amaringo, and we did a story on him in the magazine, you start to see, oh, wow, jaguars, snakes, entities. People are seeing the same things all over the world, all across time. How do we explain that?
Especially when panthers and snakes are not in our life, our regular everyday life. If you're living in the jungle.
I wasn't in the Amazon.
No.
When I saw the snakes?
No.
Well,
I was, but I didn't live with snakes. I don't grow up with panthers. I don't make up those things in my mind because it's not in my world. Even though I'm down there, I didn't see any, except in my ayahuasca experience.
Yeah, I think that the embeddedness of the archetypes in the medicine experience, both sort of mythically, mystically, and anecdotally, and everything like that, that seeds the bed of our consciousness, and then the access. I also have experienced a lot of serpent energy on ayahuasca, and I always associated it with the serpent that was the mouth and the digestive system, because it can affect everything. It's the long snake of our own inner being, and digestion, that is also part of it and helps us.
Here's a thought too. I mean, just because we as scientists and smart people have never discovered how plants see, that this is just a thought. It doesn't mean that they don't see. They very well may see. We're starting to find out about the connectedness of all the mycelial, network and all the trees talking to each other. We hear about that. I mean, we just haven't discovered yet the language of plants, really, and how they communicate.
And the hubris to think that, it's our right to discover and understand everything.
Well, it's our right to seek. I think that seeking knowledge is very natural, and we want to know more and more. Maybe we will never know it all because we'll be dead first, and then we'll be with God, and God knows all. So there you go. I mean,
eventually you'll know all.
You'll know all.
So speaking of God, we have 5 minutes to talk about choose your pronoun for God. But no, I do really want to, of course, talk for a moment at least about your important work at COSM.
God does not have a pronoun. God should not have a pronoun because God is not a gender. If it were a gender, it would be two in our world, but it's one. So that's the answer to that. Okay.
Well, I was just joking.
I know, but I think it's worth saying. that God has no
Yeah.
gender, God has no face. God is a force.
Or God is both beyond all genders and within and embodied by all genders.
God is within and not other than oneself. It's in.
And yet is also the manifest creative source of it all and the transcendent mystery that abides and is the creative source.
Our perception of it, too.
I'm going to encourage folks who are listening and watching, if you're watching on YouTube, to check out Cosm, to support their work, to follow them on Instagram. We're going to get into all the places that you can find them and how you can support them in a little while. But can we give people just a little bit of context on Cosm and what you're doing now? And you can't, you've been doing this for a long time, so you're not going to tell us the whole history of it. But what do you really want people to most know now about what's going on there?
Oh, Cosm is open. Entheon, the Sanctuary of Visionary Art, is open 3 days a week, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and has a psychedelic reliquary in the first floor. And also the All One Gallery, which features the work of a couple of dozen remarkable visionary artists, international visionary artists, from Ernst Fuchs and Amanda Sage and Android Jones and Luke Brown and Jen Stark, Luis Tamani, Pablo Amaringo, and a number of remarkable artists who have loaned works and who are sharing it with community. And it's quite a remarkable show. And then Allison's incredible work and Progress of the Soul and Chapel of Sacred Mirrors. So we have a kind of a installation of art, as well as a 40-acre campus that people could take a walk in the woods. There's a wisdom trail, and then
It's beautiful. I walked the wisdom trail with my dad. I recommend it.
We have a hospitality. We have a 10-bedroom guest house, and it's open to reservations on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So people that want to come here and stay overnight can. And you just need to, make reservations, and all that can be done online at cosm.org, cosm.org, and you can find out more about our calendar. We have Amanda Sage teaching here this week, and we have workshops every month, sometimes twice a month, and usually a figure drawing session too. So you can find out some of the things that we do here, and if you're in the New York area. Or make it a special trip. A lot of people do. New York is a great destination, and we're only 60 miles from the city and accessible by Metro North train right to Grand Central Station, right? Like you can walk out our door.
Can you believe it?
Oh, it's so
Grand
fabulous.
Central straight to Cosm, like two completely different dimensions.
Come on a weekend, make it a weekend, yeah.
Before we wrap up, I am wondering if you would like to join us for a couple minutes of meditation.
Always, of course.
Hello and welcome. I'm Sky Weaver, resident facilitator at Double Blind, and I invite you into a little bit of breath work here today. So the breath we're going to use is coming in through the nose and out through the mouth. So we're going to inhale through the nose, a little extra inhale here, and exhale nice and long through the mouth. That's it. Again, inhale through the nose, a little gasp, and exhale through the mouth. Right, and on that exhale, just letting everything out. A couple more times. Inhale through the nose, exhale. Good, one more time. Beautiful. And you can continue doing that as I explain just a little bit about this, that this is a beautiful breath practice that you can do to calm your nervous system. Anytime I'm feeling anxious about anything, in fact, preparing for this video today, I did my breath work. So inhaling in, one more time, and exhale. Soften that jaw and that tongue. One more. Nice. And just allowing the breath to return back to normal. Wiggling the body a little bit. I'm a big fan of wiggling. And welcome back. We'll see you soon.
I felt like I was with you.
What a great idea.
I had a magical vision.
All right, tell us.
Oh,
You
I was-
can't right now.
just
it.
inside of a four-faced being, and it had so many jewels going up and up in its crown. It was really beautiful.
I was just thinking of you both and how many years you've been doing this work, and it's amazing.
Oh. Well, we love you.
Really
Thank you for
dedicated
doing the
a
work you're
lot
doing.
A lot of time and care to your own personal journeys so that you can share this wisdom with other people. And it's really inspiring.
We are so lucky and grateful to have friends and people who connect with the work. And like you suggest, maybe it means something. You know, we're all connected on the inside somehow, too.
So, is there anything else I know there's so much to say. There's an infinite number of things to say and feel and paint, but is there anything for now that you would like to share with the community before we close out this conversation?
Our creative task as a COSM community right now is to put the 21-foot high faces on the building of Entheon, which now looks like a big cement block, but basically it was made very sturdy to handle the weight of enormous masks of spirit, basically, that create one head with 30 interconnected faces all around the building. And so if we can do that, that will be one strange looking building, and really somehow talk about interconnectedness in a very beautiful way.
I like to just say that the way to interact with COSM, if you would like to, if you want further interaction with us, know that we are online for ours. We Zoom our art church, so you can become if you're a future member, you can audit and you can become a member and you can participate in the Zoom. But we do this every month, and if you just wanted to put art in your life as a spiritual practice or just see what it would be like, you feel like you've been missing out on art for some reason, do it once a month. Do it with us. And a lot of the people who've been doing with us for years end up doing it in between times too. And so they develop their art as a spiritual practice and even have become professional artists out of it. So, you start to love it and you start to want to do more of it. So you can join us on Zoom for our church, even if you can't make it here. We'd love to have you in person as well. And you can join us on YouTube for the full moon and just, watch it anytime. It's live, but then it remains there, so you can be there. That's one way you can do it for almost nothing. You can be part of COSM, and then the best thing to do next would be to become a member. It isn't that expensive. We have members from all over the world, and it's a stand for this radically welcoming interspiritual art church to continue into the future. That's what you do when you become a member, is you become a stand. And you can also join the Mighty Networks, which is a community-wide members talk and share art and music and thought and all that stuff. So we do that too for all people all over the world. And so be a part of what we're doing if you like it. Support it if you can. And we love seeing you. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. What a swell thing to do.
Thank you so much for being here. Wow, I'm still digesting that conversation. If you couldn't tell, I was emotional and just feel humbled by the fact that Alex and Allison have supported Double Blind really from the beginning. They contain so much wisdom. They've devoted so many years to their own spiritual and psychedelic paths and have really been an integral part of the way that this movement has unfolded and in making sure that conversations around topics like cognitive liberty and mysticism don't get left behind as we essentially look at turning psychedelics into medicines that can be prescribed by doctors. There's so much more to get into around their work and their life and their story. So I do suggest that you check out Cosm. We've also interviewed Alex Grey in the past. We'll put a link to that interview in the show notes. Thanks everyone for listening. And I just want to remind you that if you want the chance for us to answer your questions on air about tripping, you can send them to magichour@doubleblindmag.com or visit doubleblindmag.com/magichour. Either way, we have tons of articles on our website, doubleblindmag.com, about psychedelics. We also have classes, workshops, a community you can join, and of course, our baby, which is our print magazine. It comes out twice a year, and you can subscribe at the link in the show notes. If you have thoughts about what we talked about today, you have suggestions about who should come on, you can also hit us up at magichour@doubleblindmag.com, or you can find us on all the social platforms at doubleblindmag. I also want to give a shout out to the amazing folks at Human Content who are producing this podcast and helping make it possible. They do a lot of great podcasts other than this one, so if you're an audiophile, check them out on Instagram and TikTok at Human Content Pods. Thank you to everyone who is leaving great feedback and awesome reviews. If you subscribe and comment on your favorite podcasting app or on YouTube, we might give you a shout out, and either way, we'll give you our gratitude. Full video episodes up every week on YouTube at Double Blind. I'm your host, Shelby Hartman. Special thanks again to our guests, Alex and Allison Grey. Our executive producers are Aaron Corney, Rob Goldman, Shanti Brooke, and Alex Field from the Double Blind team, who also edits the show. Our engineer is Jason Portizo. Our music is by Oma. To learn more about the Double Blind Magic Hour program disclaimer and ethics policy and submission, verification, and licensing terms, you can go to doubleblindmag.com/magic hour. The Double Blind Magic Hour is a Human Content and Double Blind production. Now let's take you out on Reality by Yamanjo. Thanks for watching. And if you're thinking, gosh, I really need more Double Blind Magic Hour in my life, well, you can start listening now by clicking on that playlist button right over there. New episodes are out every Monday, so please subscribe and join us each week on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.